who has never been a free trader, right? So he's not just out here to go against them. No. He's saying the White House doesn't seem to understand what it's trying to do and that the reciprocal tariffs are not reciprocal and could do tremendous damage. So out front now, Jim Cramer of CNBC's Mad Money and Squawk on the Street, all on CNBC, that incredible network that I will love to the day I die.
Just so great to be here with you, Erin.
So, and I'm so thrilled that we're able to talk. Okay, so what the heck is going on?
Well, I'm let down because I'm not a free trader. I'm a fair trader. Always have been from the days when you worked with me at CNBC.
Yep.
And what I was hoping was that
Remember when he was talking about? Remember when he was threatening the UAW for daring to strike against the big three? And said that Mexico is right there. Puebla. Mexico's right there. They'll move the fucking facilities to Puebla. I think that conversation in and of itself should show you exactly what these guys are fucking worried about. And it kind of should show you why I am not exactly the number one defender of free trade. Do you understand? Because when the UAW was striking against the big three auto manufacturers in the United States of America for fair contracts, this fucking asshole went on television and said they should just move the facilities down to Puebla. That's the problem. I guess you recognize the problem, but you don't think it's a problem.
Coordinated thing where if you are charging us 20%, we charge you 20%. Instead of a car where we're only making you pay 2.5% and you're not letting us in, we try to get things better. But instead,
so on a specific thing, you go, if they're 10 on a car, you go 10 on a car.
But I went deep on the numbers today, and the numbers did not make any sense. And I was actually
I was doing like bananas in Vietnam. You did Cramerica.
Well, I just said, it's one of these things where if I'm doing 100 billion and you're letting me do 10 billion and I'm letting you do 100 billion, there was a way to be able to make it work. But the numbers that they did, and they had this ridiculous. I mean, that was the chart that they had with the mathematical equation. I mean, are you kidding me? How about just like
it looked like an Einstein.
I know. How about the fact that it was just wrong?
Yeah.
And what bothered me, Aaron, was that they really did over and over again. The president said, "Listen, it's going to be reciprocal. So you do it, we do it, and that was going to be so good." And I really believed in it. And I feel like a sucker tonight. Because I am not a free trader, and I do not believe in free trade. And I was just as tough, if not tougher, than his people. But they screwed it up, and they did it a totally ill-advised way. And I was very let down as someone who really, truly believes that free trade is awful for the American working person. This is what they came up with. Geez, come on, have some gumption, have some math.
I mean,
Okay, someone send me the Puebla link, please. He's not a free trader. He's a fair trader. Because if I recall, like I said, when he was talking about the UAW contract negotiations, he certainly came across like he was a fucking. He certainly came across like he was a fucking free trader. I'll tell you that. Why would you link me a Lowell overruled tweet that just says, I'm definitely going to have to post cock and balls? Like, what does that have to do with anything? Yeah, here it is. Here it is.
Contract they're operating under more money, which is the only way to get them within the contract they're operating under more money. So I know that Ford felt a little upset that Biden joined that picket line. But at the same time, Ford is seeing some movement by Fain. David, I have a feeling that if Fain doesn't come to the table,
Fain being, of course, the man who runs the UAW,
I have a feeling that, David, if they don't come to the table soon, Mexico will be involved.
How soon?
A couple of weeks.
And how quickly could they move manufacturing of certain things?
They already have manufacturing.
So what does that mean when you say Mexico's in play? Explain what you mean.
So you have plants, say you have plants in Mexico.
Yes.
You can add on to them very easily. You can't do greenfield. I mean, it took Mercedes-Benz huge number.
But if you have an
years to do
existing
greenfield.
plan, it's not
You can add
as
on
difficult to add
That's
on.
the way you can do it. And by the way, the companies are very worried. Remember, there's a big. It's not just the 146,000 UAW workers. We're now starting to see some original equipment suppliers really get hurt. The layoffs are starting. I find the president, look, hate him or love him, joining the picket line may have been a very big mistake because that hardened the UAW, which then hardened the auto companies. And if he hadn't come there, I think that there probably would have been a deal.
Yeah.
That was not a great move. If you wanted.
That's when I knew it was indeed a great move, by the way. I already felt that way on principle, but as soon as Jim Cramer came out and was like, that was not a great move, I was like, oh, it's indeed a great move. Perhaps the best one. You know? Inverse Cramer, baby. Always and forever. Inverse Cramer, undefeated. Inverse Cramer, always and forever. Puebla. But remember, he's a fair trader, not a free trader. You know, he's a fair trader. It's just the UAW was being unfair. You know,
Must be identified as the labor president.
Workers,
yeah, you're right.
If you favor workers away from the UAW, it's not a great move by the president.
The reason why I brought that up is not to dunk on Jim Cramer, even though it's a favorite pastime of mine. Obviously, we love making fun of Jim Cramer. The reason why I brought that up is because he's fucking lying here. And it's very instructive for people to understand exactly how free trade works. Do you see what I mean? Because what he's saying there as a threat to the UAW is a weapon that the bosses over at the big three could have wielded over the UAW to be like, all right, we're fucking changing the manufacturing to Mexico. That is in the USMCA. That is how that was in NAFTA. That is how these things work. That's why we have designed these trade relationships, these trade agreements with other North American countries. That is a direct example of how these free trade agreements undermine labor union power, labor power across the board. It is perfect. That's why I showed it to you.
How in the world do they do that? After all of this, I mean, Jerome Powell,
they assured us over and over again, Aaron, that they were going to do the thing that would make it so that the tariffs would come down and the countries would that were bad actors would change their.
I feel so out of my element trying to learn all about the interconnectedness of politics. Holy shit. I mean, I try to do my very best, but if you have any specific questions, I can explain it to you.
Their ways, and then Israel decides to get rid of tariff,
and they tariffed them anyway.
Vietnam decides to cut their tariff, and they still got the highest tariff. It was such a shame because they missed the opportunity, and now they have to pay the price. And it's funny too because none of this stock market, none of this had to happen, and I feel bad because a lot of people lose money when this happens. I hope people just be calm, be constructive, but the way that they handled it was so Bush League that I was surprised. And President Trump has people who around him know these.
Yeah, and the people around him who know these things have been begging for exactly this to happen, specifically Peter Navarro. So, no, I don't think this is all that shocking. I think this was expected. He said he was going to do it. If you understood what Peter Navarro was all about, you would know that this is what he wanted to do. And the purpose here is not to like rebuild American manufacturing necessarily, but it's seen as a matter of national security. They want to go to war with China, and they can't do that if the relationship between China and the rest of the world, but specifically the United States of America, is so interwoven to the profit margins of American capital owners. You can't go to war with China. I mean, dude, Donald Trump's shadow president, Elon Musk, has fucking factories in Shanghai. Like, what are we talking about? The guy who is literally shoving his dick in every orifice of the federal government right now, Donald Trump's very own attack dog until recently, until his massive failure, Elon Musk, has fucking factories in Shanghai. There is no national capitalist class. That just does not exist. These people don't care about national boundaries. Elon Musk is not even American. He's South African by way of Canada. It's just so fucking stupid not to recognize the reality that these people only care about profits, nothing else. And I'm not saying that because I'm like, oh, they should be nationalistic. I don't mean that at all. I don't want that. That's fucking stupid. But it's just like that's how deep our relationship with China goes in terms of trade.
These things, and
can you explain why when you hear
why not just tariff China then? Why do we tax almost every other country? Because we're fucking stupid. That's the first answer. The second answer is, number one, we're stupid. Second answer is because Trump thinks in the short term that we are going to generate revenue off of this. And then that revenue will make up for at least one taxable period where he can just claim to fucking erode or permanently erode all fucking income taxes. Okay? That's another reason. And it's incredibly stupid, incredibly short-sighted. It will collapse this fucking country. I cannot even imagine a world where income inequality and the wealth disparity grows even larger in this country because we are already, I feel like we're already fucking tapped out, you know? What more? Just like servile slave masses, 99% are enslaved in like prison-style company towns or something at gunpoint. They have to, Disco Elysium, basically. The answer is not Disco Elysium, sorry. The answer is Elysium, the movie. Not Disco Elysium. I apologize. Disco Elysium looks like a fucking utopia in comparison to this. And I guess that's like the one step removed from where we're at right now with the accelerated wealth disparity. So those are the reasons why they're doing this. The reason why they're doing global tariffs also is because they have this idea that this is going to somehow force foreign companies to open up more manufacturing facilities in the United States of America, make cars in the United States of America, get more jobs for Americans, I guess. And also in return, we are going to force our product that we are not even fucking manufacturing here right now. We're going to force our product into their marketplaces regardless, without any care or consideration for their sovereignty in terms of like the domestic regulatory agencies that they have. Not only are we undermining our federal regulatory agencies here in the United States of America by way of Elon Musk, we're also forcing trade disputes with no mediator body that exists right now because of the Obama era attitude towards World Trade Organization, with no way of disputing any sort of fucking contract. Basically no way of disputing any sort of trade issues because we have starved the courts. The car argument is insanely weak. EU car makers already got most of their production for U.S. market in the U.S. No, I know. These are not my arguments. Yes, of course they're weak. I'm trying to explain to you what their perspective is. I'm not saying that this is a good argument. I disagree with what they're doing, but a chatter asked me like why they're doing this. So I'm explaining what their reasoning is, what their hidden reasons are, and what their overt, open reasons are. I will also explain to you after I describe the reasons that they're stupid, as I have all day long. So every part of this argument is stupid because we don't even have the facilities. So it's stupid across the board. And some people think it's a wealth transfer. I don't think it is. I mean, everything we do is a wealth transfer. The system is designed for everything to be a wealth transfer to the very top of the wealthy. So that's just a normal byproduct of the structures that we exist under. So whichever way Trump goes, it's always going to be a wealth transfer unless it's a directly anti-capitalist initiative implemented with an anti-capitalist vision. So that's just a secondary consequence. That's just a permanent thing that happens under capitalism regardless. But yeah, I guess like they want to fucking abolish income tax, which is so stupid. And also and I guess they want to rebuild like a World Trade Organization that is completely controlled by America, that like writes off China and doesn't allow China into it at all, or doesn't allow China to get the favored nations benefits, for example, like it does, which stop as it works, as it is right now, that stops countries from being able to add additional tariffs to China that they won't add to other markets. It's just one of the many things that the favored nations benefits offers countries like China. And Trump wants to stop that because he wants to sever the rest of the globe's ties with China by force in order to turn China into kind of like the USSR. Because the USSR did not have complex trade relations with the United States of America, which made it easier to engage in Cold War. But if you have a direct trade relationship with the United States of America, and Americans rely on cheap commodities that they get from you, that makes it infinitely more difficult to sever relationships with, sever ties with, and to go to Cold War with. Here's a great example of this. Fucking TikTok. TikTok is a treat. Think about how costly politically it is to make Americans not look at TikTok any longer, make it illegal to be on TikTok. Think about how difficult that is. It's the same principle for every commodity that is produced in China or in a secondary market that China has moved into in an effort to avoid the sanctions regime that Trump was signaling towards China. That's the reason why Vietnam gets hit with these tariffs too, by the way. Part of that is because they're not buying enough from us and we're buying everything from them. And the other reason is because Vietnam isn't just Vietnam. It's not just Vietnamese interests. It's just Chinese interests as well. He wants to turn China into Japan, essentially like a vassal state. You can't do that because Japan was a vassal state post-World War II. You can't do that to China. China is a sovereign nation. China does not have military bases. Chinese constitution was not written by the United States of America and completely controlled, as it was like developing post-World War II, by American interests and the American military. Here's a Democratic pollster saying, it appears that this is the fourth worst back-to-back day for the DJIA in American history, with a two-day combined minus 8.65% loss, only trailing the 1929 crash, 1987 Black Monday, and the 2008 financial crisis. I guess you can't correct 30-plus years of budget deficits, trade imbalances, and anti-American globalist giveaways in less than a week. Why are these guys... Are these guys actually like right populists? Like, I'm a little confused because their output comes across like they do care about American manufacturing, but I don't think that they do. I've never seen anything from the Trump administration nor its dick riders that suggest that they give a fuck about benefits and compensation packages and unionization in this country. They are inherently antagonistic towards American labor unions. And the only reason why they can even ostensibly present themselves as pro-labor or pro-labor union is because there is no motion within the labor unions anymore. The union participation rate is 10% in this country. Unions are entirely gutted. They have no power through through Supreme Court decisions. They have eroded all semblance of power. The Trump administration is also delivering a final blow to the NLRB as well. So, and he fucking, with the stroke of a pen, revoked the rights of federal union employees to collectively bargain. 1.5 million people lost their right, according to the Trump administration, the power to bargain, to engage in collective bargaining agreements. This is not an administration that cares about labor unions. This is not an administration that wants American manufacturing to return to its heyday, to return to its glory days. So I don't know why these guys act like they're actually labor populists here. I don't know why they're fucking presenting themselves as that.
Optimal.
Scott Besson, he is a smart guy.
He's very smart.
He is a smart, thoughtful, respected person. Right. And he came out and defended these.
Well, I think when you
But people like that, they know. He knows.
You know, I tried to think like that because Peter Navarro is someone I've known for 5 decades.
Yep.
And I was hoping that Peter, who I talked with a lot, really understood, because he understood. He taught me these things. And I know he knows what reciprocal tariff really is. And he didn't deliver on that. And that was a shame, because there was such a great opportunity to course correct and make it so all these people who have taken advantage of our country repeatedly and wiped out all of the jobs in small towns, wiped out my father's job. This is one of the reasons why I've always felt like this. It's ridiculous how badly we've been taken advantage of. And I thought they were going to do something. And what did they do? They cratered the damn stock market and gave us nothing.
Well, I just want to emphasize again, I think it's so important to emphasize where you're coming from. Because there are some who will come out and say, well, you know, free trade. You know, Larry Kudlow, your old friend, right?
I know, that we always had a very flashpoint with me and Larry.
Right, was about free trade, and they'll make the economic argument for it, and they'll make, right, that you're not actually coming from that. You would have been open. You're not ideologically opposed to the concept of what they were trying to do.
Not at all.
But they didn't do it.
They made a bargain with the devil. They decided to get rid of the American working person's good job with a good pension and sacrifice it so we could get cheap goods. And they never thought for a minute, the Republicans or Democrats, what would happen to those towns and those people, and they were left behind. And I always felt that was horrendous. A president.
He's such a liar, and not a particularly good one, because he's talking like he does an emotional plea by invoking his father. And yet, I am reminded of the time when he was talking about Puebla. Remember, don't forget Puebla. Jim Cramer certainly never forgot Puebla. Okay? So the idea that he's like, in any way, shape, or form, in support of better contracts and beefing up American manufacturing and American labor unions is ridiculous. He's a stock trader. Of course he doesn't give a shit about that. He loves all of these decisions that were made. I don't care how much he tries to claim he's in support of these decisions.
Comes along that's going to do something about it, and this is what he does?
You know, part of the reason, and you and I are friends for a long, long time, but many people know our relationship for this one moment. Not this moment, but a moment.
You know it for decades of my so fortunate to be friends with you and your family.
You know, but there was this moment, and if anyone hasn't seen it, I'm going to play it. I'm going to play it because we're in a moment right now. I don't know if you heard Peter Tuchman describe it on the floor today. That it was a feeling like in COVID, of just feeling a darkness and a fear and on that floor that people hadn't felt. And it was a horrible feeling. It makes you feel sick. And there was another moment, he mentioned COVID, there was one other moment. And that moment was that horrible crash when nobody thought they could even get money out of an ATM.
Right. No, it was us.
And you said it like it was at that time. I want to play the moment.
He has no idea.
Cramer.
I have talked to the heads of almost every single one of these firms in the last 72 hours, and he has no idea what it's like out there. None!
Mad money, baby. That's the mad money guarantee.
And Bill Poole has no idea what it's like out there. My people have been in this game for 25 years, and they are losing their jobs, and these firms are going to go out of business, and he's nuts. They're nuts. They know nothing.
Cramer.
I have not seen it like this since I went 5 bid for 500,000 shares of Citigroup when I got hit in 1990. This is a different kind of market, and the Fed is asleep.
Nailed that one. You know, little, obviously is very much less medicated than me now, or maybe just younger and a little more fiery. But yeah, that was 2007. You and I both knew, and I was getting tired of trying to be calm and trying to be like you are supposed to be on TV. Right. But I always felt comfortable with you, and I know that.
Okay, I don't care about this.